I've had this YouTube channel for 9 years now. Over the course of 43 videos, approximately 120,000 views, my voice has been heard, but I've never shown my face, and so eventually I knew I'd have to elevate my content. Recently on Artstation, I've uploaded 7 new posts for the recent Splitgate 2 release. And as my time there has ended, and this is my 3rd AAA company and 2nd launched title, I thought it was a perfect time to give more insights into who I am and what I do. So, I'm Rene, 7.5 years in the industry as a concept designer. Realistically, the first 2 years were pop art production at UBISOFT actually. However, even there I was still designing, just not officially titled that way. And then I would make the game res, I'd import it into Engine, which was Snowdrop Engine at the time. And that was for the Division 2. And then I lived there for 2 years. I'll put the picture of the building up here. And then from there I moved to Manchester during the pandemic. So that was during 2020. And that was to work on Star Citizen. And I was there for 1 year, 7 months as a vehicle environment concept artist.
No matter where our paths take us, we all have our place in the fleet. United in purpose.
Now at Star Citizen, I was working on smaller ship concepts in the beginning, and then I moved on to capital ship interiors. So I did about 4 rooms of the Perseus, if you know what ship that is. It's the dagger blade one. And then I was working on props such as the Moab, the Mystery fueling arm. There's several components that I worked on that aren't out yet. There's things I even did for Squadron 42, which is the campaign to come out later. Don't know when, but later. And then after that amazing experience there, I moved on to 1047, which is a full remote company based in Nevada. And that's in America. But their company's full remote, so I actually moved from Manchester to London. It's all a bit weird. And then I was there for 3.5 years. So there I was doing environment concept art, which I'll show you some of later. So that was an incredible experience. In total, it's been 7 years, 3 AAA companies, and 2.5 ships titles, because Star Citizen is the half. And I just feel like eventually you've got to try and add some value back into the community however you can. And so I've started a Discord relatively recently, which I'll put a link in the description below. But also I feel like it's just time to start talking a bit more about design and the industry as a whole in terms of production and how this how these things can kind of work. There aren't as many 3D designers on YouTube as there are 2D designers from what I've seen, so my aim is to somewhat add value where I can, and whether it's answering your questions or even just learning and showing you how I study things, whether it's car designs or just studies from games, for example, or just giving you my recent thoughts on, for example, a new car design or a new game design. Even if I'm not just learning from it, it could just be critique, right? So if you have any questions, any video recommendations, feel free to let me know. And if any of this sounds interesting to you, then feel free to subscribe, because I'll be posting more here. I'm not going anywhere. And thanks for watching. You can also find me on Instagram, Artstation, and obviously subscriptions below, and the Discord that I'll be posting in the comment section below as well. So one thing I thought I would do is quickly go through my Artstation and actually just show you some of the most up-to-date work that I have. To just give you an idea of like what my art style is like. I realized that, let's say I have about 1,000 or something subscribers at the time of recording this, that a lot of you may have never seen my Artstation. You might have just found me through YouTube, due to how some of the videos were seen and some of those subscribers were found. So this is just to kind of give you an overview of what I've been up to. So yeah, let's begin. So this is actually the first post if we actually go on my Artstation. And if I just go back, actually, I can show you the main screen. So this is currently the work I have public. There's a lot more work hidden. But so I'll start from this one, which is the most recent Splitgate 2. So in Splitgate, there were 3 factions. And I'm just going to speed run this, and then I'll have videos that are dedicated to the kind of information. But there's AEROS, there's Sabrask, and there's Meridian. And so Meridian is the 2nd faction I worked on. And so these were blue sky explorations, and blue sky exploration is like when you're given basically pure freedom to figure out what something looks like. And then from that moment, you then establish an art style, and then that art style is what's then perpetuated and brought forwards for the remainder of the time you're working on the project. So yeah, this was an airlock door. This is about a day of work for context. So I was just kind of throwing things at the wall, and the idea with this was just slate, metal put together, and I'll just let it play. So you can see that there's a camera, kind of tracks the player, and then the door opens itself, right? And then I like this idea of like it splitting into three. Top goes up, right goes to the right, and then the left goes to the left, right? Did I just hit the mic? I just hit the mic. And then obviously next is just the server, kind of relatively generic sci-fi server, but what I tried to do is have an interesting heatsink that curves with the fan's shape, just to add something a bit more interesting. I also liked the idea of the fan spinning and then that casting a shadow that flickers on the servers. And this is the servers in-game, so this is actually in-game for Splitgate, and this is how it was kind of placed into the map. So you can see that there were changes along the way between concept and production, but I'll get into that more later. This was another earlier server exploration. These were just different ways that they could open and close, and you could have like interfaces or UIs on them. This is the inside of the Meridian door, so behind the metal paneling, this is like the underlying kind of structure that was below it. So just showing off details like that. This was about color blocking. So color blocking is when you have things that are blocked in color, as you can tell. In this case, we were trying to figure out how we would use color blocking to separate and segment the environment so that you can easily see, you know, pathways to go through and, you know, points of interest. That's called POIs, like in industry. Here was a similar exploration where I'm looking at like slanting the sides, and you can see this also if I go back to the door, that the door is slightly slanted forwards, and the idea of that is that I wanted it to be overarching, so kind of like it's menacing and intimidating. It leans over you. That's why it's not a flat door. A lot of sci-fi doors are very flat. I was like instantly, no, I'm going to lean this forwards towards you. So you're approaching the door as much as it's approaching you, for example. And then this was cabling that was done. So with the color blocking, we also wanted to use cabling to guide the eye around the environment. And so figuring out how to do like a nice arrangement of cable, what's the word? Cable management, isn't it? Yeah, cable management. Yeah, this was how it took a lot of time, but and you can see here as well, right? So here you have a clean Y shape, and the cables, everything's kind of flowing along. Your eye flows up and then down across and to the left and to the right. So it's just about guiding the eye. And then this here is just like a quick kind of kit bash of my kit bashes put together to see like what does the security, you know, maybe doorway possibly look like. I hit the mic again. I'm getting used to this. And so yeah, that's currently this page. Okay, so with this, I'm looking at the Splitgate 2 carbon structure exploration. So in the beginning, AEROS, like I said, one of the 3 factions. That was the first faction that I started on, and that was the first faction that we kind of fleshed out. So the idea of AEROS is that it's sleek, fast, sporty, and we were inspired, at least for the environmental aspects, by Formula 1. So you see a lot of carbon fiber. Even if you look at the main AEROS character, they have like a carbon fiber kind of a shoulder kind of pad around them. So the idea of like lightweight materials, speedy, right? And if you've ever played the game, you'll see even from the power weapons and stuff, like everything's focused on speed when it comes to AEROS. So with this one in particular, this was figuring out like what would architectural structures look like, and if you don't use pillars, let's say industrial pillars to hold up a building, what would it look like if you were using pushrod or pull rod suspension inspired by Formula 1 cars or things like that, right? And so, yeah, with this, I was just trying to figure out what kind of forms we would go for, what kind of structure we'd actually go for, right? This was actually a curved one. So this was all about tension. When it comes to carbon fiber in particular, it's about like what direction the weaves are formed in. And when you're looking at things like pillars, a lot of and arches as well, a lot of structural stability is about tension and pulling and pushing, right? It's the weight pushing down on something in a certain way. And so with this, I was going quite literal. So there was a lot of like bending in this. Now, obviously, in real cases, you probably don't want to put weight on a bent piece of carbon, but visually it was interesting, right? So they call that the rule of cool. So when you sacrifice function for beauty, I did it. Obviously, this was not actually used in production. So you can see this is another one, right? And this is a bit more torsion. And what I was trying to do is get contrast between X and Y axes and then a smooth transition between both axes. I'm going to talk a lot about that like later. If you look at this, you'll notice this is very simple, but you've probably never seen this shape on Artstation. It's extremely simple, but no one's done it. So there's a lot of like things that are missing, I would argue, from the industry in terms of shape language and form language. And so I was just trying to push things as much as I could. In the end, this is actually how it came in game. So you can see these are flat, and the reason being is that working with curved surfaces over the level designs block out just proved to be too difficult, let's be honest. It wasn't easy to make modular either. But if you look over here, you can see even here, like we were able to get some bending in them. This was done by Jacob Lippold, who I worked with. He works on Star Citizen now. But he was able to kind of take that idea that I was polishing with the carbon, and then he was able to implement it really well in this area. So shout out to him. And if I scroll down, you can also see this is just other renders. This was me pushing Keyshot to its limits and seeing like how can I get partial renders. This is all area lights, no HDRIs. So I was trying to figure out like how to create intentional shadows and lighting and stuff like that. And then yeah, these are just more shots. So that's really it. So what I'm gonna do is I will go through this last one, which is the Splitgate 2 big portal. I'll only do these 3 for now because, you know, for the sake of the length of the video, I've already spoken enough. And then what I'll do in the future, if you want them of course, is I'll do breakdowns of different projects and even show you inside the viewport, you know, how I made it, how it looked for me during, I'm going to keep hitting that, how it looked for me during the actual workflow, because all of these are renders I did after the game finished. This is not actually what I submitted. And, you know, maybe I can show you more how production can be, because obviously Artstation is just everyone's finished work. Much like Instagram, it's a highlight reel. So this was the big portal used for the Hangman, so the Battle Royale. It's the biggest portal in the game, probably the biggest prop in the game. It's the second time I've done that. I did that for the Division 2. I am proud of that, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so this I am proud of, not in terms of its visual beauty. I've done designs that look more beautiful, sure, but the scale of it and what it had to accomplish, I'm quite happy with it. These are actually Blender Cycles renders. I am trying to get into Blender. The others were Keyshot, so I'm in that transition period, but it helped with doing something of this scale. And the idea with this is you run in through the central aisle or the 2 aisles on the right and the left. If you look really closely, you can see on these aisles, so if I just go through this video that I recorded, you can see through these aisles that there's these cushions. And the idea that, of these cushions that I had was like, when you go into a football arena, I've never actually been to a football arena properly, not recently, like when I was in my childhood though, they have these kind of cushion pillows that are like full of advertising on the left and right as you go in. And so the idea of this is that you're walking in or out of an arena, right, quite literally. And so that was part of the idea of when you stepping in to this, and then from here you step downwards, and then this would be the exit into another biome, which is just another environment map, as the map begins to close down on your Battle Royale game. So yeah, this was quite an endeavor, especially at that scale, but it was great. It was great to do it. And yeah, I think I'll probably make a separate video and go through the designs of these kinds of things. But that's just to give you an idea. That's only 3 posts. I obviously have quite a few. It would take me an hour probably to get through all of these, so I just thought like just a little idea of what I'm up to would help. But yeah, feel free to check out the Artstation. There's loads of work here. Thank you.